Prix champion. Just really great. Not even more than a year, probably more like maybe like 18 months of success.
He has done a really nice job of just carving out a really, really nice resume over the past 18 months. You see at Thoughtseizes where we're going to start here. There's an island, a Jace, an Azorius Guildgate, two islands, excuse me. There's a Negate, a Revelation, a Detention Sphere as well.
Jace Memory Depth.
We saw him use this to great effect against Andrew Tenjum last round.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't take the Memory Depth here, but oh no, he's taking Detention Sphere.
Got bigger plans here. Braun-Duin's Esper list much different than Tenjum, so he's got 4 main deck Blood Baron of Escopus. He's got a bunch of removal. Of course, he's got Thoughtseizes, and we'll get to the sideboards in a little bit. But one thing that both of these players had was Sin Collector. One thing that Tenjum did not have is Pack Rat.
So that is why he took Detention Sphere.
And we've seen Esper players start to incorporate the Pack Rat strategy in their sideboard. Of course, Braun-Duin, he won Grand Prix Louisville with Mono Black, so he is very familiar with the old Pack Rat. And now thoughts he's going to show up here.
So Brian doesn't look like he has a third land.
That's not so good.
Or maybe he has a scry land. You figure if he had a third land, he'd play it prior to attack, unless it was a scry land. But let's see what he does here. He does have another Thoughtseize, which will help out a little bit. Now he can take that Memory up if he wants, or maybe he wants to take the Sphinx Relation. Either way, it's tough.
Yeah. I'm going to take Rev.
Because Esper doesn't have that many counterspells. It really relies on those Thoughtseizes of sniping those cards.
Gainsay is a draw for Jensen. He's going to play a Plains and pass the turn back. So Pack Rat's just going to come off the top of the deck right into play. Jensen draws another Gainsay, plays an island, and passes it back. So Braun-Duin, does he draw a third land? I think it's a
temple.
Land.
So not going to be able to activate that Pack Rat, but Brian will be able to scry a little bit. Looks like it's probably not a land. That's why he's shipping it to the bottom, I'd imagine.
Easy ship. And now Jensen says Jace. Braun-Duin, he says that resolves. So Jace is going to mill the top card and draw Jensen a card.
Looks like a Divination. So Jensen in pretty good shape here. He's got a counterspell. He has a Divination. Again, you wonder whether or not he kept in the Supreme Verdicts. I think William probably knows Brian. Brian, this isn't a new deck. I mean, obviously the strategy of Pack Rat could be somewhat new, but I think William probably kept in a fair number of Supreme Verdicts just for this possibility.
There's a D-Sphere. It's going to take care of Jace. The Rat's going to get in for 1. This is kind of, it's funny because I'm kind of replaying the same questions in my head from last match, as there's a Divination going to draw Jensen 2 cards. A counterspell, and a land. Is he going to leave in Verd in this matchup? Because we saw Tenjum win game 2 very, very quickly with an Elspeth and Aetherling and friends. And now you've got Pack Rat coming in here as well, so people are actually using creature strategies to combat the blue-white control deck after sideboard. How many counterspells does Jensen leave in? That's a very good question.
So Jensen looks like he's going to take 1 here. He has a couple of counterspells. He's got Gainsay, Negate, Dissolve. Brian Braun-Duin only knows about the Negate, though.
Yep. Yeah, he's got double Gainsay, he's got a Dissolve, and he's got a Negate in his hand. And now there is a Nightveil Spectre. So yeah, as you take a look here at Braun-Duin's sideboard, there are a lot of creatures here. He's got 4 Nightveil Spectre, he's got 3 Pack Rats, an Aetherling, 3 copies of Sin Collector, and then a Glare of Heresy and a Thoughtseize.
Good draw there from Huey. He drew a Jace, Architect of Thought, so he's going to be able to cast that and still have counterspell mana up.
Now, interesting thing here, where you saw Braun-Duin play that Nightveil Spectre and pass the turn, Zvi Moskowitz wrote an article about Pack Rat and the best way to go about using it in particular matchups and how he thinks that people aren't just simply activating it enough. That may be a situation there, exactly what he talked about, where Braun-Duin could have just made another Rat instead of casting Spectre.
Well, that's why I find Rat somewhat strange in this matchup, because there's not a lot of cards you want to discard. Like, you want to keep making your mana drops. Like, you can't afford to not miss a land drop in the control mirror, and all the spells in your deck are just so high impact. It's not like when you're playing. It's not like you have Underworld Connections in combination with with Pack Rat, and when you're playing Mono Black Devotion, you're okay with discarding land because you don't need more than 5 or 6 land to function. But with this deck, you can't. There's so many turns where he just can't activate Pack Rat. He has to continue to develop his board presence.
And you see that exactly happen right now because he goes to cast a Hero's Downfall on Jace, and Jensen just has a negate for it. So he's fine making that 1-for-1 trade, and he's just got a low Pack Rat here. But what card is he comfortable just saying, yeah, throw away that counter spell or that removal spell, or what is he happy just discarding to make more Rats?
So look what Huey has to do here. He has to 3 lands. He thought about maybe upticking it one more time, but now it looks like he's just gonna, because Brian could potentially draw a land, play a 6 land, and activate Rat twice and just kill the Jace this turn. Let's see if that's what happens. I'm not sure if he has a 6 land or not. But again, you'd have to go all in, which I think going all in on a Rat is okay, but not when your opponent has Detention Sphere and Supreme Verdict in his deck. So that's why Rat, I don't know, it just seems like an odd strategy against. I think it might be an okay card in the sideboard. Just not sure if I'd want it in this particular matchup.
You see another time here where he could have made a rat, but he opts to cast a Jace, which gets countered. So he's not moving in on the rat strategy. It's just kind of there. And now Jensen draws a Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
So fortunately for Braun-Duin, he did not move in on the rat strategy. As Jace is going to tick up, Jensen going to play a Plains and pass the turn back.
So he's really going to try. He's hoping that Brian goes all in on the rat.
Yeah, trying to reel him in now.
Yeah.
Yep. And the funny thing here, too, is because it just feels like, and he's going to discard now. He's going to discard Night Veil Spectre.
And you were talking about him doing that. He should have done that maybe 5 turns ago.
Yeah, I mean, but it's tough because like you can make an argument for not wanting to do that. And now Supreme Verdicts could come in.
Yeah.
It's going to clear out the rat and basically effectively clear out a rat and a Night Veil Spectre and pass the turn back. And now Braun-Duin has to deal with this Jace. Here's a land untapped. There's an Elspeth. Will this resolve? The answer is yes. But how good is Elspeth right now? Not really that great because there's a Jace Architect thought in play.
Yeah, but he still needs to find an answer for it. It looks like, ugh, wow. So he has a divination. Hopefully he'll draw. He needs like a Sphinx Revelation, Detention, or something. It's just because that Jace is going to probably die this turn.
Yeah,
Let's see.
He is flooding very badly. Divination's going to give him 2
Wow.
more lands. Wow. Hey, 27 lands.
Yeah.
It can happen.
So let's see. Elspeth, is it going to take it down for Brian? Draws a land. Looks like it might be a Sin Collector. I'm
That
not sure.
was the draw for that turn, I believe, or at least he had one in his hand. So now, Elspeth tokens, where are we going? He says 1 at Jace, 2 at you. Coast is clear.
I think 2 win at Jace. Just
Okay.
to protect around like Azorius Charm
That's
or something.
fair.
We're
3
gonna
more
make 3
tokens going to
more.
come in.
We're going to see Sin Collector. Oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't Sin Collector prior to combat.
Yeah, me too, because then he could have maybe gotten more points of
could've,
damage. Yeah, got more informed decision on the attack.
So we're going to untap here. Ooh, just
Mutavault.
another land. I mean, it is a Mutavault, but still. Jensen in a tough spot here. Really needs a Revelation at this point.
Yeah. All right, there's Mutavault, pass the turn back. So Braun-Duin knows all the contents in Jensen's hand, which are, lands. So we'll see him draw a card.
Yeah, Elspeth threatening ultimate fairly soon.
Yeah, threatening game over is what it's doing. So attack for 6, 7, 8. Mutavault, eat a token. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So we're going to make 3 more tokens. You're going to lose 1. You're going to make 3 more. Brian's just going to play a land for the turn. We're going to
Bunch
see.
of mana.
Oh,
With mana up. Yep.
All right.
This is crazy. This is there's a dissolve off the top.
Yeah.
Jensen's going to pass the turn back. This is like a crazy redux of what we saw in game 2 between Tenjin and Jensen last round. This is almost exactly how the game played out, except for that Sin Collector. It was a Notion Thief. And yes, it drew a card.
All right. Well,
which is awesome.
Pack Rat was awesome that game.
BBD is going to tie it up against Huey here as we move into the third and final game between Esper Control and Blue Eye Control with plenty of time to spare.
Plenty of time to spare. And again, the transformational sideboard from BBD kind of favors him in a long round because he can kind of close out games. He's unlikely to, if they have 25 minutes left and both players are pretty quick, so I don't foresee a draw. But if things are going, I think it's more likely that there'll be a draw or BBD wins because William doesn't have a lot of win conditions in his deck.
Oh.
So I don't know if he can close out the game in less than 25 minutes, but we'll see.
All right, so you see both players going back to the sideboard. They're taking a look here. Jensen has now seen Pack Rat, he's seen Night Veil Spectre, and he's seen Sin Collector. So he's probably re-sideboarding. The question is, what's he doing over there?
Yeah, we know he left in Supreme Verdict, at least one. So he's got a Pithing Needle, 4 copies of Gainsay probably come in for sure because he wants to counter Night Veil Spectre early on, as well as the Jace and all the other counter spells. Negate's probably coming in. Last Breath, I don't know. Does he want to bring in Last Breath, knowing that he has to contend with Night Veil Spectre and Pack Rat, possibly? Particularly knowing that in order for BBD to probably win quickly, he could get one of those draws where it's like turn 2 Pack Rat, turn 3, just activate Pack Rat, try to kill you fast before you can draw into a Supreme Verdict or a Detention Sphere. He's got 2 copies of Fiendslayer Paladin. I don't see that coming in. 1 copy of Blind Obedience, same thing. 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Glare Heresy. 2 Jace Memory Adept. Obviously, Memory Adept is pretty good in this matchup. Plus, it allows William a chance to kind of end the game relatively quickly. I mean, 3 activations will probably do it. So definitely bringing in that card. In his main deck, though, there's not that many cards that he really doesn't wants to take out. Like Azorius Charm, obviously not that great, but you can't cut all of them. Yeah. Especially against Night Veil Spectre. I'm not sure if Last Breath is better if he has Pack Rat and Night Veil Spectre, but I don't think he can cut Azorius Charm. He can chase some of the Supreme Verdicts, I think. But again, it makes it difficult knowing that your opponent has a creature transformational sideboard.
Yeah, you play that little game of, I can sideboard out Supreme Verdict if I want to, but then I can just kind of cold to Bloodburner Viscopa. Braun-Duin has 4 in his main deck, and you have to assume, because we did cut into this at the beginning of game 2, that you have to assume he probably saw 1
Yeah.
or 2 in the first game. The first game takes a while, and of course Jensen's deck takes forever to win.
Yeah.
So he probably saw that they had those in the main deck. So take a look at Braun-Duin's sideboard here. Both players shuffling up quite quickly. Again, 3 Sin Collector, 2 copies of Doomblade, 4 Nightveil Spectre, a Glare of Heresy, an Aetherling, an additional Thoughtseize, and 3 copies of Pack Rat. What I like about this sideboard is, 1, it's not traditional, so you don't really see it coming, but 2, it really makes it difficult for the blue-white control to the sideboard because, as you mentioned, there are creatures here. It's like, am I going to leave in Last Breath? It's not so good.
It's transformational sideboards. I love playing decks with transformational sideboards because you can get free wins simply because your opponent just doesn't know what to do against you. Sideboarding, because you're playing 3 games and most of the games are going to be after sideboard, having a correct sideboard plan is so important in a long tournament like this. And so Huey's probably very familiar with Esper. He's played Esper a lot.
Yeah.
And he even wrote an article on Star City Games about the Esper Mirror.
Yep.
Really good article. Actually, like a really, really good article explaining how you play the Esper Mirror. But all that was predicated on the traditional Esper deck, not this Esper deck with a transformational sideboard.
Yep.
Your opponent's bringing in Sin Collector, Nightveil Spectre, and Pack Rat, and he also has Thoughtseizes. I mean, that he's attacking you from a number of angles. You saw that first game. He had Pack Rat, which wasn't that big a deal, but Huey had to counter Nightveil Spectre, then he had to contend with the Elspeth, then he had to deal with an Aetherling.
Yeah.
It's just like there's so many angles of attack that Brian's coming at you with that it's very difficult for William to kind of contend with that, particularly when your opponent's also Thoughtseizing you.
Yeah. So see, both players have kept their 7 cards. We are underway in this third and final game. The other thing I like about this deck here is you're going to see a Thoughtseize. We'll take a look at the contents of the hand of Supreme Verdict, Sphinx's Revelation, Detention Sphere, Jace, Hallowed Fountain, and Island. Is that for Esper, they can comfortably side out their Supreme Verdicts with not a care in the world. And blue-white control does not have that luxury because now especially that there are creatures coming in. So it's so easy for BBD to sideboard here where Jensen has to hedge against kind of everything now.
Yeah, and that's the problem with blue-white control is that it's a lot better than against aggro decks than a traditional Esper deck because you don't play nearly as many tap lands, and you have less of a chance of getting color screwed. But at the same time, you're much more vulnerable to an Esper deck because they have Thoughtseize, and their plans after sideboard can be a lot more powerful than your plan could be.
See a third line there from Jensen. Braun-Duin did just play a Temple of Silence. Now he's going to play a Sin Collector, so he wants to know what's up, and Dissolve says, I don't think so.
Yeah. There's just so many cards that Huey has to counter now after board.
He's overloading the things that he's take care of. He draws a Revelation, plays a Hollow Fountain tapped, and passes the turn back. So he's representing counter magic here. He's got an Attention Sphere, I believe 2 Revelations, and a Verdict in his hand. Now you see Braun-Duin's going to play the Pack Rat. There is a Water Grave and passing the turn back. So now here's a mini game.
Ooh, Pithing Needle. So Pithing Needle can make that Pack Rat pretty ineffective.
But what to name? You
Yeah.
can name Pack Rat in the short term and take care of it. You can name Elspeth or Aetherling in the long term, or Jace, Architect of Thought, but then you have your own. So what exactly do you name with that card is now here comes the PR.
So Huey missed his land drop. Pretty unfortunate because he just has that. He's a Sphinx of Revelation in his hand.
For
He's going to
1.
just. He has to cast it for 1 now.
Yeah. I think
So
that's like the last thing he
drew a
wants to
Memory
do.
Adept. Does he have another land? No.
No, he does not.
So still without a 5th mana. Did draw an Azorius Charm. At this point, I think he needs to have some answer to the Pack Rat. Not sure. Okay, so he's going to cast it first, see what Brian does. If Brian responds by activating Pack Rat, he doesn't have to name it. He can name something else.
And he knows that Brian knows that he has Detention Sphere
Yeah.
and Verdict in his hand. So he's going to name Elspeth Sun's Champion. So now it's Revelation time here for BBD. 2 cards, a Hallowed Fountain, and a Mystery card. Along with the draw step means he's going to get to see 3 fresh ones coming into this turn. And we've seen a lot of times in control matchups. You've been playing forever, so I'm sure you know this. First person to miss a land drop in this kind of matchup oftentimes loses.
Yeah, it's tough to win the control mirrors when your opponent has as many cards as you and just up on land. And that's one of the reasons that I didn't quite understand the Pack Rat, because it's just you can't afford to miss land drops in this matchup. So if you're not discarding lands, you're discarding a high impact spell.
Yeah. So now here's a Verdict, and BBD knew this was coming, so it looks like he's just like, okay, I need to power through this first Supreme Verdict. That's what Nightveil Spectre allows me to do. Here's a land. This might be a slam down of Aetherling, perhaps.
Wow.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
The 1 Aetherling. Here it comes. That's, yeah, there's not many cards that he Piden Needle's obviously an answer to Aetherling, but I believe he named Elspeth with it.
Yes, he
so.
did. And one of the things, too, is that, one of the things about the blue control deck, you speak to Andrew Cuneo about this, or Jensen, as here's a Jace Architect of Thought, going to turn over another Jason Azorius Charm and a Plains, going to be a 2 counters, is that they said they're comfortable playing against Aetherling because their deck really doesn't do anything. You gain a bunch of life, you Azorius Charm it, you elixir immortality, everything back in. You can actually, conveniently enough, be able to beat an active Aetherling and attack for 8 every turn and not kill you, but not when you're in this situation.
Yeah, Huey's a little far behind here. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to contend with an active Aetherling at this point. Although, he can get a couple more activations with Jace. He has Azorius Charm to sort of fog for the turn. So let's see if Huey can muster some sort of action here. He's got that Memory Adept. So basically, if Huey can maybe get a couple of activations of Memory Adept going and just keep fogging the Aetherling, the problem is that there's just only so many Azorius Charms that you can draw.
And we haven't even mentioned how Sin Collector or Thoughtseize can break up that plan. As
exactly.
Now here's a Thoughtseize. Excuse me, here is an Azorius Charm to stop Aetherling for the moment. Let's see if BBD has any discard here.
So it looks like we're going to have 4 mana for a Jace, Architect of Thought of his own, putting further pressure on Huey now. Let's get 10 with an Aetherling and an active Jace.
So that's going to go up, oddly enough. I guess, so it doesn't die to Mutavault.
Yeah, Mutavault
is ideal. And back comes Aetherling and pass the turn back. Now, one thing about Aetherling, in case you guys are wondering at home, you can't really miss that trigger.
Yeah.
So you're going to be okay. As Jace is going to get cashed in for 1, 2, and 3 cards. Divination and 2 lands. Pretty easy chop there.
So yeah, Huey's plan here is probably going to be around trying to get a couple of activation of the Memory Depth going, but it's not sure how. He doesn't have. I don't know if he has another Azorius Charm in his hand or not. He might have to just cast Divination here. No, he's going to try Detention Sphere. Looks like he's Detention for the Jace.
Okay.
And cast a Divination. Yep.
So he's going to draw 2 cards, hit 1, hit 2. Azorius Skillgate coming to play and pass. So he's going to take 1 on the chin this turn, but he's trying to get those things that can put Braun-Duin further ahead off the table and then try to eventually beat an Aetherling. It's going to be tough to do, but you have to have a plan and try to carry it out.
Yeah, and he's got a plan. He knows what he has to do in order to win this game. The problem is that Brian has 2 Detention Spheres in his hand, so it's going to make the Jace activate fog turn plan very difficult.
Yeah. Aetherling's going to come across for 8. Going to put Jensen down to 11. He draws an island for his turn.
I'd imagine we're going to see another Divination here. Or no, we're just
going to go with Jace right now. He says, is that okay? The answer looks to be yes. So, up and draw. Bye-bye Revelation. Into hand goes Syncopate. There's an island, 3 mana.
He's just digging
Divination.
here.
Okay, so he's more than happy letting his Jace die at this point. And I kind of like this, too, because what this does, because he has Elixir Immortality in his deck, means that his Jace isn't gone forever, number 1, unless it gets sphered. But number 2, it kind of gives Braun-Duin the option to make a mistake here. Because what's important, what's not important. You really got to have a really good understanding of this matchup. And, you know Jensen has a lot of cards in his hand, so what does he care about? What doesn't he care about?
Yeah, he might just try to close this game out and attack Huey for 8 here.
So here's 3. So he's going to sphere this.
So interesting choice here. He's going to sphere it and then attack Huey down to 3.
So Jensen will go down to 3 from an 8-point Aetherling hit. And BBD passes the turn back with a couple blue mana open to save his Aetherling. Azorius Charm will act as a fog right now, but the fog plan isn't as good without the Jace Memory Adept in play.
Yeah, and I don't know if Huey has any more card draw. Or are we going to cast Sphinx of Revelation?
All right, it's the main phase rev. So that's for 5.
I think it's for 6.
For 6, yeah. No, if it was for 5, he'd be dead. So it's definitely for 6.
So he's going to be able to stay alive even if BBD activates the Aetherling all the way.
And you see he cast it right now so that the Zolve can't come into play. He couldn't beat a Gainsayer Negate anyway at this point. So he goes up to 9, which means the attack, assuming BBD goes all in, would put Jensen down to 1. So he's giving himself a shot.
And I think BBD just has another Detention Sphere in his hand.
Oh, draws an Elspeth. But Needle's on it. But Needle's on it.
Oh, that's right.
So not a big deal.
There's a Pie Needle on Elspeth. So effectively, I think he just had. Oh, and an Architect.
Okay. Well, he's got 1 Planeswalker that'll matter. So you just turn over a Hallowed Fountain, a Watery Grave, and a Thoughtseize. Yep, that's the easy take.
And Mutavault can take out that Jace Architect of Thought. But actually, no, BBD will be able to blink out his Aetherling and get back. So.
If he so chooses.
Yeah.
So now here's a Thoughtseize. Let's see the grip. There's a Rev. see him just hand it over. He's got a
Yep.
syncopate.
Gotta take this Sphinx of Revelation. Looks like there's an Azorius Charm in his hand, the Tension Sphere, and a Syncopate, and a bunch of land.
So nothing too important here. Again, Aetherling can get in for some amount of damage. It doesn't have to be 8 this go around. More than comfortable dealing 4 and then attacking for 5 the next turn. Because a couple of lands up there at the top.
Well, he doesn't have a lot of blue mana. I don't think he can afford to. Yeah, because he has 2. He only has 2. He has 2 blue mana. Okay. So you can attack for 4, maybe.
I mean, he does just take a look at Jensen's hand too, so he knows he doesn't really have an answer.
But if he pumps Max, he's going to lose his Jace. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't think he can pump all the way.
Yeah, he's just going to go for 2. He's going to deal 6, put Jensen down to 3. You see, he was trying to figure out exactly how much he can jockey for and deal.
Yeah, so, wow, let's see here. Huey can actually attack and kill the Jace right here.
Looks like that's exactly where he goes, yep. So Jace bites the dust. And don't forget, he has his Azorius Charm, so Azorius Charm acts as a fog. There's a Mutavault, pass the turn back. Boy, he's trying.
BPD is at 12.
Yeah.
3 hits with those 2 Mutavaults will end the game. So let's see if Huey can draw another Sphinx of Revelation to help his cause out a little bit.
He says activate Mutavault. BBD says unblockable.
All right, so there's that.
All right, get that out of here.
Mutavault has a tough time attacking through Aetherling.
That's true. All right,
so
that's
Huey's
back.
doing his best. Best to kind of stay in this one.
Draws a Plains.
Just draws another land.
And that is going to do it. Braun-Duin does defeat William Huey Jensen 2-1. Wins the sideboard and wins Esper Control 4-0. Jensen moves down to 3-1. You see both players talking it over. These guys played at the Invitational in the top 8 last time we were in Indianapolis, so they're very familiar with each other.